right, powered by Go-Goat Sports and in partnership with TSN, we welcome you to Season 3, Episode 11 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Infinity. We continue to love driving our Infinity vehicles, and you can check out their entire line. Very impressive stuff. Book your contactless test drive today online, infinity.ca. Infinity, conquer life in style. Minnesota Wild, a great story, Ray, and we'll talk a lot about the Wild over the course of this show. Wild forward Marcus Foligno is going to join us a little bit later in the podcast. What a season for the Wild. It's intriguing on so many fronts. But what ton of news to sort through here, and we'll get to the headlines coming up very shortly. You look like you just got off an airplane. We know that you were doing the Winnipeg-Toronto game. I know that because I was in studio during the intermissions of that game that you were doing. But we looked like two guys that maybe didn't quite get enough sleep. And now we've got to sort through a mountain of firings and suspensions and all of that. So let's start with you. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling like a rumpled old suit coat right now. I got internet on the plane because I wanted to make sure that I was up to date on what was going on, and that, with everything going on in Vancouver, and then, just prior to landing, the news came out about Alain Vigneault being fired in Philadelphia. And then the fallout from the carnival in Winnipeg last night. There's Department of Player Safety, they got about 8 lines in the water for that one. And it's funny, like you can see it happening. Yeah. And then it almost becomes like you're not even watching it in real time. Now, I don't know if you watched the F1 race yesterday. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton are neck and neck for the championship. But there were so many penalties and stops and starts and run off the road things. And after a while, you don't even really know what you're watching. That was the Jets and the Leafs last night. Like by the end of the game, it was like, the officials need to start handing out a bunch of 10-minute misconducts to all of the bad actors or potential bad actors. Just ship them out and take away the problems. But man, that was crazy.
It was crazy, but I was amused at some of the reaction on social media. And we're going to take a closer look at each individual case and how it applies to the Department of Player Safety and headlines here. But I'm sitting on the panel, of course, with Lindsay Hamilton and Dave Poulin. You played in an era where, thankfully, it's changed, but all the shenanigans of that third period would have been just an average period of play back in the day. I mean, Pooley's watching this, and, people are outraged because Pierre-Luc Dubois ragdolled, he mauled Austin Matthews. How can that happen? What is going on here? And Pooley's looking around, he goes, really? Like, did you watch the Flyers in the 80s at all? But thankfully, the game has shifted and it becomes more of a spectacle when we see it unravel like that.
Okay, a couple things. I used to hope that games never got too out of hand. So if it was 5-3, that was plenty. I didn't want it to go to 7-3 because then all bets were off. Right. And that was even if we were ahead 7-3. It was like, look out, here it comes. And
like
then
the message sending all of that.
Yeah? Oh, yeah. And you got your head on a swivel just trying to get to the end of the night. That was it. It's really interesting. People get outraged at, as you know, one of my favorite words, the shenanigans that go on in a game. They don't want them. They don't like them. But when Matthews gets tossed around, they want retribution. Yeah. They want somebody to go get Dubois, make him pay. Well, which do you want? You can't have both. You can't be outraged at the shenanigans and then want there to be retribution. There can't be both. No. So no matter what the rules are, there are games that are just going to go off the rails. And that one went off the rails. There was the Dubois-Matthews wrestling match. There was Dubois hitting Joseph Woll, which was a weird play because Woll came out to play the puck, dropped his stick. Then he couldn't jump on the puck, so then he dove down to play it with his hand. Dubois going away or trying to get away from him. His knee hits Woll's head. In my opinion, Woll shouldn't have been in the game.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
There is zero chance the concussion spotters should not have taken Joseph Woll out of the game.
And the whistle right after that, Ray, you saw Woll reaching for his water bottle. He's leaned up against the crossbar, facing the glass. And now our cameras see everything, but he didn't look out of it, but he did not look comfortable. He looked like he was feeling the ill effects of taking the leg to the head.
So now we've got those two incidents. Then, of course, the one that springboards everything is Neil Pionk's hit on Rasmus Sandin. And once that happens and there's no major penalty given to Pionk, now you got a real problem. Because
you think it should have been a major penalty?
Yes, I do, but I don't. But this is what happens in that hit. If people can take away as they're listening, I just want them to get this picture and don't be a fan of either team. When two players come head to head, and the defensive player is going to make a hit, but they're squared up, head to head, nose to nose. That's a football hit. In football, the linebacker leans forward to make the hit, and so his shoulders are the first thing that make contact. You can't do that when you're skating. Like physically, you can't do that on a head-to-head hit. So if you miss the initial contact point, which is a pretty small point with your shoulder, the next thing that's going to hit is your knees. There's no way around it. So Pionk got caught out of position. He's nose to nose. The contact's made. He should be suspended. It should have been a 5-minute penalty. And Toronto is going to lose Rasmus Sandin, it looks like, for, I don't know for how long, but he certainly was not. He was in pain. And so that's my view on Pionk. It should have probably been a 5-minute major. I think he's going to get suspended. I think he should get suspended. And then Jason Spezza is now on a in-person hearing track for coming a good distance. And it's clear he's going right after Pionk. Like there's no question. There was no other vision in Jason's head. And when Pionk stumbles or falls or whatever, it's like a quarterback that's going to the turf. The linebacker can't follow through on them anymore. Now, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, they drove him into the turf. And so what Spezza did, in my mind, is not 5 games, but it should be suspended. I was quite surprised it was an in-person hearing, but if it were 3, I wouldn't have been surprised. But if it's 5, which the in-person hearing can be, or more, that seems heavy for me.
Well, the intent, not that he's necessarily trying to take Pionk's head off. I mean, obviously, but Spezza was enraged, as you know, right on the bench. Like when the hit happened on Rasmus Sandin, the entire Toronto Maple Leafs bench was upset, understandably so. But Spezza specifically was. Are you between the benches in Winnipeg, or is that
no? That was Kevin Sawyer was there. I was up top, which actually afforded me a pretty clear view of what was going on. And we had, we showed in the game, the Leaf bench, but Spezza in the middle just. They were losing it on both the officials and then the Winnipeg bench. And then Wayne Simmons, who got fined, I don't know, how much did he get fined? $2,550. $2,250. Yeah. And so for cross-checking Jansen Harkins after he had tripped him, then maybe the most entertaining yeller in the business is Paul Maurice.
I know where you're going. I love it.
When he starts to get fired up, it's, I don't know. I just can't help but laugh because he's such a cerebral guy, but the wires have touched. There's no slowing the train down now. No. And so he's given it to Brad Meyer, and Meyer's looking at him, and he finally gives him like a baseball safe sign. Like, that's it. No more.
Yeah, enough.
And Paul had to kind of like take a deep breath and, I don't know so he's yelling at Keefe. Keefe's yelling at him. He's mad because Simmons is on the ice with Tavares, and that never happens. And the whole third period was like a spinning top the only thing that could stop it was the horn at the end of the game.
Well, so we're recording episode 11 of season 3 here on Monday early afternoon in the East. So you've got 2 hearings, one for Neil Pionk, the other one via Zoom, an in-person hearing for Jason Spezza. Wayne Simmons has been fined $2,250 for a cross-check. And I suppose it's conceivable, given how Rod Brindamore was fined $25,000 last week for berating officials, that maybe Paul Maurice gets the $25,000 slap. But anyway, bear with us, because this information could come out as you're listening to this podcast and feel like old news. All part of Headlines, Ray, presented by our friends at Boston Pizza. Just in time for the holidays. From now until the end of the year, you get a free $10 promo card when you buy a $50 Boston Pizza gift card. So we've sorted through the mayhem of what went down in Winnipeg between the Leafs and the Winnipeg Jets, and we invite you to stay tuned there. Now we get to the tough stuff. I mean, you never want to see a player get hurt, obviously. So, hopefully Rasmus Sandin isn't as bad as what it looked like. But a lot going on. Let's start with Vancouver. More recent is the firing of Alain Vigneault, Michel Therrien in Philadelphia. We'll talk about that. But the Vancouver Canucks, and it's simply ownership, decides that they're making changes this weekend. Yep. And all came to a head yesterday morning, with the firing of Travis Green as head coach. Nolan Baumgartner also dismissed. In comes Bruce Boudreau as head coach for this year and next year. So a term that mirrors what Travis had extended to in May. And Scott Walker comes in as an assistant coach. Management goes out in Jim Benning fired, John Weisbrod fired. Stan Smeel is the interim general manager for the Vancouver Canucks. Ryan Johnson will get an elevated title. Chris Gear will probably get more responsibility. Maybe Henrik and Daniel take on more inside hockey operations. So you want to break this apart piece by piece? Why don't we go that way? You want to start with management or coaching in terms of the shift? Why don't we start with coaching, if you don't mind, just because a veteran coach like Bruce Boudreau had been kind of twisting in the wind, gets another opportunity here. I know you're not surprised that Travis was cut loose, but are you at all surprised that they go to Bruce Boudreau?
No, I'll start really quickly with Travis, who I've known a long time. And, I feel quite badly that he's fired today. And, but there was a change that was inevitable there. I mean, it was like he was walking on the plank. He just hadn't gotten to the end of it yet. And so that loss Saturday to Pittsburgh was a bad one. The fans were disgruntled. There was, change was coming. So they let go Travis, and Nolan Baumgartner's been Travis's guy for a long time. And so quite frequently, like with the Philadelphia spot where Alain Vigneault and Michel Therrien, who have been together forever, when the head guy goes, their guy goes too. And they become collateral damage. Bruce Boudreau's made it perfectly clear he wanted to coach again. He loves to coach, and he wanted to coach. I'm not surprised that he takes this job. There's probably some coaches that were going to say, wait a minute, I'm not taking this with an interim management and my contract's just to the end of next year. But Boudreau wants in. He's a good coach. He's got a tremendous regular season winning percentage. If there is a knock, it would be playoff performance, but that's not even the issue right now for Vancouver. They got a good coach, a quality coach, who is, I think, like what you should do when you hire a new coach, it should be a little bit different than the guy you got. So Travis is detail oriented. He's a little bit blunt at times. Open door, but blunt. Bruce has never been described as anything other than a player's coach. Very not X and O tactical, very feel. And maybe that helps Elias Pettersson find his game, because he's not been there all year. And when Pettersson's not there, that means Besser's no good either, like to the level that they would hope to have there. So they bring in Scott Walker to be his assistant. I think Walker's played for Boudreau before. He's coached with him, was going to be on the Team Canada coaching staff, Walker and Boudreau together. So they'll have to figure that out. for some of the tournaments coming up. But they got a good coach. The hard part to understand is, so now you've got a coach under contract till the end of next year, and you have no management. Everybody else is interim. So, I mean, that's a little convoluted to me. Stan Schmiel has been in the organization since he's retired. He's a good man. He's done just about everything for them, and so he'll help shepherd the team until they come to a decision on a president. I would assume they haven't had a president since Trevor Linden left the organization, and a new general manager. But Dregs, that stuff can't happen fast. Like you're looking for someone that's got an entire vision and the chances are, if you hire a GM for 2 years, what's he really going to be able to do? You can only make so many moves.
No. So how are you looking at this? If you're the Aquilinis, and I mean, you've just laid it out, how difficult it's going to be given that Boudreau is under contract for this season plus one more. The uncertainty of management, it sure feels like the Aquilinis are going to bring in a general manager and maybe somebody to oversee hockey operations. We'll see how that kind of works its way out, or if they go with an internal candidate. I suppose that's possible. There's some speculation of Marc Bergevin. Does he want to get back into the mix this quickly? Does that make any sense? Do you look at someone outside the organization who maybe doesn't have the same level of experience? Names that are floating about are plentiful, ranging from Craig Conroy in Calgary, Steve Staios, who's a former Vancouver Canuck, is having good success in the Ontario Hockey League. Granted, it's the Ontario Hockey League with the Hamilton Bulldogs. Do you go to a more proven guy? Like, what direction would you want to take this from a management standpoint?
Well, I would start by saying whomever they hire needs to be able to hire a staff. The Canucks have been woefully undermanned in their management for quite some time. And, people had moved on or been let go and they weren't replaced. So whoever the new general manager is has to replenish the front office, has to be able to bring in an assistant general manager or two, director of player personnel. Like, they've got a big job in front of them. It doesn't feel like, to me, a job for a first timer.
I agree.
It feels bigger than that, but at some point, everybody is a first timer. So say they interview 2 or 3 guys or 4 or 5 guys, whatever, and they find a younger guy, inexperienced guy that they really like. Well, then I would bring a more experienced president in front, on top to help as a sounding board. If it's the other way around, if it's a veteran general manager and you still want to add a president or another voice, that doesn't have to be as experienced. But I think there can very easily be, and should be, some new blood to this, some new thought, some creativity. But it would be grossly unfair to throw a first timer into the pool all by themselves. There's a lot to do in Vancouver.
There's a lot to do, which is kind of good for us in the podcast business, because we're going to have a lot to talk about, be it Vancouver or around the National Hockey League. It's not unusual for this type of stuff to happen around the 2025 game mark in the NHL regular season. It starts in Montreal with a changing of the guard there with Bergevin out and Jeff Gorton brought in, and he'll hire a general manager. Then you shift over to Vancouver, as we've just discussed. And earlier today, as we record here on Monday, confirmation that Alain Vigneault, Michel Therrien let go as head coach and associate coach of the Philadelphia Flyers by Chuck Fletcher, who's the general manager, and some wondering how long that might last if the Flyers don't turn things around. Mike Yeo, who is working with Alain Vigneault as well as part of the staff, will take over the Flyers bench on an interim basis. Man, I don't know about you. I actually liked a lot of the changes that Chuck Fletcher made to the organization. I thought the Philadelphia Flyers were going to be much better this season. Is it the right call, or is it the only call that Fletcher had to try and salvage this season by firing his coach?
I don't think he had another option. the way they were losing, Dregs, I mean, they lose 7-1 at home to Tampa Bay last night. Tampa's got no point, no Kucherov.
No,
Doesn't seem
no.
to matter. They just ran right over top of them. They made a lot of changes on a team that was very poor defensively to get better. They paid a pretty hefty price for Rasmus Ristolainen, who has not been analytically a very popular defenseman over the last couple of years. Yes, they've had, look, they made a trade for Ryan Ellis. He's been hurt all year. Yeah. That's a big hole in their lineup. Couturier doesn't look quite right. Claude Giroux has not been a threat. They traded Jake Voracek. Cam Atkinson's just been okay. All that adds up to kind of like some bad soup there, right? Like it just doesn't feel right. Now, the middle of the season, around this 25 game mark or so, 30 game mark, Mike Yeo must get antsy because he's been hired, fired, rehired, fired in the middle of the year. When St. Louis, Minnesota, and now Philadelphia. And so he's had a history with Chuck Fletcher. So Chuck would be comfortable with Yeo going behind the bench, but he's got an interim tag, so they can look as quickly as they would like for a new head coach.
Yeah, and I mean, automatically we all think of Rick Tocchet, or at least most of us, I think, did when we got the sense that Alain Vigneault was going to be on his way out. So there's a story that we're going to have to monitor. Maybe John Tortorella again. I mean, there's some old school guys still heavily involved in the decision-making of the Flyers, right, Ray? You've got Paul Holmgren, who's still mulling about. You've got Dean Lombardi, who's hanging around. And Bobby Clark says he's retired, but I think Clarkie's always sort of kind of nibbling at the edges.
The Flyers are different too, eh? The Flyers are different, Dregs. And that's why Tocchet makes so much sense. So he's working in TV and wants to coach and will coach. We'll see if this is the right spot.
We should have lumped this in earlier, but why don't we wrap up headlines unless you've got other things you want to discuss with the McDavid boarding major. Should have mentioned it earlier. No supplemental discipline going to be applied for this one. Dangerous hit on Kempe. Yeah, it was dangerous, but I think it was called appropriately, a 5-minute major, and he was tossed from the game. Dave Tippett didn't like it, but even though, again, you got to be careful, don't you, when you're watching these things on television, because unless you're analyzing like you do, and you have access to, a myriad of angles, all the angles that are there from a television perspective, it can look like an extraordinarily dangerous play. Then you look at it from another angle and you see, well, maybe did Kempe turn a little bit? Does he catch him square in the numbers, or is it more in the upper back across the shoulder? I'm not making excuses for the hit. I thought it was an appropriate call, but it didn't seem to elevate, for me anyway, to the level of supplemental discipline. And it doesn't sound like Department of Player Safety is going to go down that road.
Well, I don't think it should either. I mean, I thought the 5-minute was warranted, and the reason being was the distance covered, the force that he hit Kempe with, and also McDavid's body contact is on the right shoulder of Kempe, which is the far side of Kempe. Right? Yeah. So that means, by definition, he kind of hits him right in the numbers. And whether he, Tippett mentioned, he came back and scored on the power play, that's irrelevant. I mean, you're allowed to come back in the game. I watched Tippy try to play with a broken thumb. His thumb was hanging off, and he tried to come back and play. So he's allowed to come back, but that is a major, and it shouldn't be more. I think that's plenty.
All right, let's have a little bit of fun at the Oilers' expense, and maybe Dave Tippett to some degree. And you're probably knowing where I'm going with this, and that's the Alan Walsh tweet last night. And we always give Alan credit because when it comes to sticking up for, negotiating for, just supporting his players, he's publicly the best, right? There's just no fight that Alan Walsh won't engage in when it comes to defending the players. So I'm going to read
which is his job, by the way. Hey,
that's his job, man.
Yep.
Fierce. He is fierce. Yep. So this is a tweet from Walsh last night. Oilers defenseman William Lagesson had his best game in the NHL Friday night. What happens? ? Dave Tippett never told him he's out tonight, being last night, didn't tell him to skate with the scratches. He finds out just before the game. It's the kind of disrespect from a coach that destroys teams. So he makes the point of how his player has been unfairly treated here. Just give him the heads up. If he's not playing, why?
Right.
Make it a teaching moment. And then he hammers him. It's the kind of disrespect from a coach that destroys teams. That might be the sword in the back.
Yeah, but yes, it is. Both the sword in the back and destroying teams are probably a leap too far. Right? It's not going to destroy the Oilers. He should have been told in the morning that you're a game time decision. They've got another youngster, Nemalainen, who's this big giant 6'5" Finnish kid that's been running all over the place and very physical. So they chose to play him. When I was in Hartford, we had a coach that one of his jobs was to tell the guys who wasn't playing. Well, I'd go out for warm up. I went through this stretch there that wasn't going so good, and the four lines are doing line rushes. I'm the 13th forward in case somebody falls down and gets hurt. That I would be in, and so I'd come in after warm up, and the coach would go. He would tell me then, "You're out." I'd be like, "Oh, really?" I didn't do
Shocking.
one line rush out there. Yeah. But it was almost like he relished saying, "You're out."
And was your response always the same? All right.
No, I said, "Oh, really? Oh, really?" It was like 6 games in a row. "Oh, really? Thought I had a good warm up."
That's terrific. Headlines, as always, brought to you by our friends at Boston Pizza. Our interviews on Ray and Dregs brought to you by Canadian Club Whiskey. You were asking, are you over beer? Why not try refreshing CC ginger ale with lime next time you're having a drink or watching the game? All right, we're now joined on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast by Marcus Foligno of the Minnesota Wild. What a story the Minnesota Wild are, Marcus. Best start in franchise history, top spot in the Central, second behind the Florida Panthers in terms of goal scoring. How did the Minnesota Wild get to this point?
It's a good question, and it's obviously it's great to hear stats like that, and honestly, I think our 5-on-5 play has been something that's kind of lingered from last season. I thought we really established kind of lines from last year, and obviously having the likes of Kirill Kaprizov and Zuccarello, guys like that have got built some chemistry, and our line with Greenway and Eriksson Ek. We're also getting contributions from our D, and even though our gritty lines, the fourth line, everyone's kind of chipping in this year, and it's been the whole team kind of stepping up and making plays and playing smart, playing together, and I just think that's our makeup. When we play as a full team, a 5-man unit out there, you see us scoring 4, 5, 6 goals a game, and games where we get away a little bit individual, we tend not to kind of have that success, and right now we're doing it consistently, playing as a team, and it's great to see.
You've got 11, and you got 10 goals in 24 games this year. Your offense seems to have just kind of grown and grown. Why is that? Is it maturity? Is it just figuring the game out, or?
Yeah, I think for me it's definitely figuring the game out. I think I think I struggled with consistency early on in my career, and not that you always want to play a certain way every night, and that physical way, and me being the type of player I am, I have to kind of bring it every night. And honestly, I really do believe it's not bashing teammates I've had before, but I just think the line I'm with Greenway and Eriksson Ek, we just complement each other really well, and it's probably one of the best lines I've been on, just because we know each other so well and how each other plays, and those two guys can make plays. So I'm lucky to be playing with those guys, and we just got a good support system going on. So I give a lot of credit to those guys, helping me out find the back of the net in the past 2 seasons. And you know, you look at my goals. There's no end to end. There's no doing things by myself.
It doesn't have to be,
in the
man.
right place. That's right. They don't ask how, they ask how many. So it's just one of those things where I'm doing the little things right, and those guys are doing the little things right. And in the end, we're getting results for it, and we're just a tough line to play against. And I just, the confidence then starts to build too. I do feel, you know, you can make plays. You have that, you know, we are a grinding line, but when we get in the ozone, you can make some, you know, soft passes and things like that to open up some things and start rotating the ozone. And we've been doing that, getting your feet moving a lot more. And I've just been, you know, benefiting from that with playing those 2 special players.
Now you're a big man. You've always been really physical. When you're younger, can a player of your style and size almost forget to play with the puck because you're trying to make such a physical impact all the time?
Yeah, yes, definitely. I think sometimes you're, you know, sometimes in a position like I am, and there's a lot of guys in this league that are big and strong, and sometimes you feel you need to be physical every shift, and rather than sometimes, you know, the saying, just play the game, feel the puck, you know, things like that, where maybe you don't always have to go in for the crash and bang hit. You can go in with a good stick and disrupt it, or you got more time here. And you know, I think, you know, you don't want to be, there's nothing worse than a big guy trying to make a skill play that doesn't work in a way. And I think that there's a balance there. And I think now I'm understanding how to play like that. You know, there's a time and place to get in and get physical, but there's also great, you know, parts of my game that I've learned of, you know, using my body physically, but to puck protect, to hold on to pucks longer, to make a better pass, a smarter play. And that's kind of something that I've learned along the way. And as a bigger guy in this league, you want to keep that physicality up, but you also want to be relied upon that you can make plays and be out there in crucial situations. So you know, right now the confidence is there, and it's been a good balance.
Matt Dumba was saying after you guys beat the Leafs that, you know, it's pretty cool to, you know, you're playing on Saturday night, and people that don't normally get to see the Minnesota Wild play get a chance to see you play. And it was a wildly entertaining game. Like, is that kind of cool for you guys to you're getting a little league-wide notoriety that maybe people didn't notice before?
Yeah, it was exciting. Like, leading up to the game, we had a lot of exciting jitters for that one. I mean, cool. Was it to make a statement for our team? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I grew up in Canada and was able to play in Buffalo for so long. We played the Leafs a lot. That, you know, maybe I got a little numb to the hockey night in Canada thing. It was just something used to it, but it was just something for our team to showcase ourselves, and then we took it upon us, and it was a great game. I mean, Toronto's a heck of a team, and obviously has great scorers, and we wanted to show that, you know, we're at the top of the division for a reason, and it ended up being a great game. So yeah, we were excited for that Saturday night puck drop, and you know, games like that bring out the best of you, and it's just nice to see our whole team step up and play that way, and obviously get that win against Toronto was big for our group with just confidence.
You know, Marcus, that one also had some feistiness to it as well. First period, you get into a dust up with Wayne Simmons, and the media was quick to jump on it, social media anyway, saying, oh no, Foligno should get 10 games for leaving the bench. I mean, that was the automatic response. Kaprizov stays on the bench as you jump up, and then you come back and engage. Now, as we know, the National Hockey League didn't see it the way some media portrayed it, but as you're coming out of all of that, are you thinking, oh, geez, did I just make a pretty significant error here?
Well, I'll take it back. Like when I got on the bench, like I got the puck on the wall, and I made a flood pass to Brodin, and I kind of was like, oh, like it looked like I was going at someone, and then I wanted to get off, and then I realized Greenway hit Matthews, and they're going to have a response to that because it's Matthews. So as I'm leaving, I feel bad because Greenway's getting kind of 2-on-1 at the blue line, and I'm got a leg up on the bench, and I'm like, I look like not a good teammate right now. And I kind of scan the ice, and I see Kirill, and Kirill like I do like this, like, don't go Krill, and he just stayed. And then once I realized he stayed, I hopped on. And and then after, it's not one of those things where I went after Simmons and or jumped someone from behind and caused it. There was always something going on, and I went in there and ended up fighting Simmons, and it is what it is. If I didn't touch the bench at all, we wouldn't be hearing it. But there's definitely some talk after the game of it was close one, but there's no malicious part to it. It was just one of those things where I got caught in between wanting to get off and not realizing that Greenway was left in a vulnerable position. So I try to jump to the defense of my teammate, but at the same time, I did scan the ice to make sure. I think if Creel did jump, I would have for sure had to have stayed on the bench for sure.
Now you mentioned Jordan Greenway, first round pick a few years ago, and he's kind of gradually grown into this giant frame that he's always had. Now you play with emotion and passion, and that was a topic for him. Like, could he get it? How do you wind him up? Because you guys look like, and you mentioned Eriksson Ek before, who's just he might be as underrated a player as there is. He's so good. Like, when you get him riled up, like, you guys must love forechecking with guys like that. Like, you're so big, you guys.
Yeah, I think that's, Greener is like, he's special because he's got way more skill than I do, and I always tell him that. And sometimes he's still young and he's still learning the way to be physical, and it's just something that it's not that it's in you or not. You have that sour taste in your mouth. You want to play with that nastiness. He sees it. He's a guy that can go in the corner, make a nice play, and set some time up for other players around him, and that's the way he wants to play. And with being 6'6" and maybe 6'8" on skates out there, like, everyone wants you to be physical and hit and run guys and barrel guys over. And when he doesn't do that, people start getting on him a little bit. And we have such a good communication skills. Me, him, and Ecker, we know how to get each other going a little bit. But when he gets emotionally involved, and sometimes it's just me telling him, "Hey, let's get going," or "We need to do this," or "We're getting too cute." That's where our relationship kicks in. That's why I think he's been picking up his play so well, is that he gets it. Like, he has to, when he puck controls, I'm telling you, my eyes get so big in the ozone because I know I just got to get free, because he can take two guys on in the corner and still keep the puck. It's amazing, his skill of puck control. So it's such a cool thing when he gets going, because you see other guys on our team get going. And I think that's one of the biggest compliments as a player. If you can, like, raise your team by your play, it means you're a special player, and he just has to understand that. And that's just the learning and his youth right now, because he's been putting a string of games now together where he's been doing it, and we've been winning because of it.
Now, you're a super competitive kid. Your older brother's a super competitive guy. You guys room together. You've lived together forever. Like, at what age were you able to start taking him on? Because he's 4 years older than you, 3.5 years older.
Yeah. I think when I was getting like the 13, 12, I think, just one of those things. He stopped growing, and I was getting a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. So I was catching up to him. It's just one of those things with Nick. He's a huge competitor still to this day. We do stuff in the off season, and he hates.
What's an example of,
times
like, anything or everything?
Yeah, like anything. Like, we'll do sprints, and or hey, like, it's who's ever doing like a circuit and who's ever using the heavier dumbbells, right? But yet you're killing yourself because you got to do it about 10 more times. So, but it doesn't matter. He's got to have, if I grab 12 pounds for like doing shoulder something, he's got to grab 15s. Like, that's the type of guy he is. So he's it's anything though. Like, and I think that's what drives us and why we've been playing for a while now, is just because we're lucky we have each other to push each other, and it seems like every summer we get better. But it's one thing that killed him when I started getting faster than him in the sprints. So now I've he'll probably lie to you if you asked him, but now I crush him in sprints nowadays. It's been a couple of years now. So but when I started doing it, it was probably around when I was probably like 22, 23. It took me a while to get there, but that's when I started catching up to him on the fast kind of the sprints and stuff like that. And it's still to this day, just it ticks him off. I don't almost when we're done sprinting, I don't talk to him for about 10 minutes after it, just to let him cool down a bit, because he can't stand
now,
it. So.
Now, do you ever look back when you finish and you're just like, do you rub it in a little? You got it, don't you?
Oh yeah. Like we sometimes going across the line, I'll just say, oh, did you race me that time? I didn't see you.
So good.
Just stuff like that.
Love
just
it.
get him going, and he's pissed off. And anytime I go first, I get a time, and then he's like, okay, I'm going to get this time, and he doesn't get it, and he'll throw something. A water bottle gets chucked at least once a workout.
Hey, Marcus, your locker room changed a lot. When Ryan Suter and Zach Parise were bought out and they've moved on to new teams. You're a big part of that leadership core, Matt Dumba, Jared Spurgeon. How have you tried to make that room more yours? Because those are big personalities that left. And Mikko Koivu too.
Yeah. Those three. I mean, it was, there was a lot of, when that happened, when Suter and Zach got bought out and obviously weren't going to be with us this year. Those three guys, Mikko Koivu too, obviously retiring. Those three guys really did run the room, and for a great reason. I mean, they're great players and great leaders, and just had that presence. So it was one of those things where if you're gonna do it and you're gonna have this new faces, you got to do it by committee and do it with some, have a great leadership group. And we have a great captain, Jared Spurgeon. He's been under the wings of those guys for a long time and seen, pretty much, everything go down for the past 8 to 10 years in this organization. And he is such a great player, consistent. He's everything you want in a captain and leader. He just brings it every day. You know that he's going to be the hardest working guy in practice. And I think that's something that maybe he saw from Mikko Koivu for sure. So I think, talking to him when we lost those guys, and you could sense that there was a little bit of pressure on Jared for sure as a captain. And, we just talked about it and just saying, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to have to bring everyone in. We're going to make this a tight knit group. And we got to make sure that, there isn't, just one guy's voice. We want everyone to be heard and everyone to have an opinion and everyone to feel comfortable. And it's kind of what you're seeing on the ice right now. You're seeing just a hockey team that's gelling right now. And, you bring in, lucky to be an alternate captain along with Matt Dumba, but you bring in guys like Goligoski, who's won and has been around for a while. You brought Johnny Merrill, who just came off a Stanley Cup run. And, Matt Zuccarello, who I look up to as a guy that's been in the grind and been in the playoffs and has been in the Stanley Cup finals. There's so many guys in that room that are helping the transition right now. And I think that's the biggest thing for our team this year.
Quick question. Do you have a funny story you can share about Bruce Boudreau, who was just hired in Vancouver? I mean, we all love Gabby. I mean, there's lots of stories about him, but do you have one maybe you could share?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, I don't know if you want to the ketchup stains on his dress shirt, maybe, but or that
we've seen those. We've seen those. Yeah.
Sometimes there's a couple of extra cookies in his pockets as he's leaving the meal room. No, I think Bruce is I think for him. Oh, actually, yeah. Now I got a great one. Okay, here we go. Just perfect timing, actually. So we actually bring in this sleep guy to talk about sleep. So Sean Scahan, our strength coach, comes into this theater, the game theater room, and gives us like a 10-15 minute speech about why sleep's important. What we should do, what things on routines just to get better sleep, and talking about sleep debt. And we had everyone on these chairs here, nice recliners. They're nice and cushiony. And Bruce comes in halfway through the meeting and sits down at the far end over there. And he's listening to the guy, and it's kind of dimmed in the room. And we see the guy look at Sean, kind of seeing how much time he's got. And Bruce has been in the room for about 2 minutes, and the guy's going on with sleep still. And he looks at Bruce. She looks at Sean. And he's like, hey, we got enough time? And Sean looks at Bruce and he goes, Bruce, we got enough time? And Bruce is in his lazy boy recliner and he is passed out. He's sleeping during the sleep meeting. And we all looked at each other, and he's not waking up. And we're all dying laughing. And someone, I think Bob Woods kind of, hey, like he's talking to you. And Bruce was like, oh, yeah, you're good. 5 more minutes. And I think he almost went back to sleeping again.
So good.
That was probably one of the funnier things. I've never seen a guy. I'm like, we all said to the guy, I'm like, you must be legit because you made one of the guys sleeping.
So good.
Marcus, we'll let you go with this. Look, man, appreciate you taking the time. Your family does so many good things on the charity front, right? You lost your mom, Janice, to breast cancer, and now there's the Janice Foligno Foundation. Do you have anything planned? Anything that you want to promote going into either the rest of the winter, the summer? I know you do so much good for so many different events.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, no, it's great to obviously have the foundation and be donating back to many charities. And I think the one thing that we're trying to do is my mom's from Sudbury, Ontario, so Sudbury's kind of been the hub of the Northern Ontario part, and just trying to make sure that the medical field's a little bit better up there for people getting treatment and helping volunteers. A lot of great people that help those that are in need. And right now we actually just donated 50,000 to the Canadian Cancer Society.
Nice.
And with the foundation. So that was a big thing for us. And right now we're actually talking to more. We tend to do some things in the summer. We have one of my cousins does an unbelievable job with CrossFit. She's got a CrossFit gym, and she brings in about all these people over Sault Ste. Marie, North Bay, Timmins, Ottawa. These teams come down and do a big CrossFit competition. It raises a lot of money. And we're still working on something that becomes annually in Sudbury. We got a lot of great donations and from the league, and there's actually been a lot of people in Minnesota that have donated, which has been awesome. So we're thinking of keeping something in the family tradition with Italian, the Foligno name, and maybe doing a bocce tournament or something like that.
Nice.
But it's in the works to kind of get something going annually, and every year we're trying to donate at least $50,000 to $100,000 with all the donations that have been coming in. So it's been a great thing to kind of keep doing it and making sure that her legacy continues. And obviously the big picture is just to find a cure for cancer.
I mean, it's so good that giving back is a priority for you and for Nick and for your father, Mike, and your family in general. Certainly can tell you're passionate about it. So good luck with that. Let us know if you need any help promoting. We'll be happy to help in any way we can, and keep it going, man. You and the Minnesota Wild have something special happening this season.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks, Marcus.
All right, Ray, time to raise a glass of that nice 43-year-old Canadian Club whiskey. And we're saying cheers to Marcus Foligno of the Minnesota Wild, joining us today, presented by our friends at Canadian Club. I'm sure you've had lots of teammates. I mean, his head coach, Dean Evison, probably ranks among your favorite teammates of all time. But you get the sense from just the casual conversation that we just had with Marcus that he would be that guy in the room, right? Where things are lighthearted when they need to be lighthearted. But when it's time to put the work boots on, man, he's more than happy to get that job done as well.
Well, I mean, that's the easy part we see is when he plays, right? He's like a rumbling bull out there. He's so big and so fast and so physical. And, we talked about now the last 3 years, he's got 11-11 and already 10 goals this year. I mean, that's a whole new dimension to his game, but he's such a big personality, and a locker room with energy is a good locker room. And I don't think in any small part that you can see his contributions to what's been an amazing start for the Minnesota Wild.
And look, I like the way you framed the question to Marcus about the departure of certain players, right? And in Parise and in Ryan Suter, Koivu is a little bit different just based on his choice more than anything. But sometimes you need that, don't you? To just breathe new life into an organization, because if you don't have that ingredient, that cohesiveness, that want to play hard for each other on and off the ice, right? That's a big part of it. It's difficult to win.
Of course, Bill Guerin, they had to make that choice, right? Because I mean, you're not making that and thinking it's a little decision. They're big, important personalities. Suter's playing 26, 27 minutes a night still, and you want to move on from them. So they had to bite the bullet financially and then say, okay, if they go, do we have a leadership group?
Yeah.
And obviously they felt comfortable with Spurgeon and Dumba and Foligno. And, he mentions Matt Zuccarello, and then they bring in Goligoski as well. But it also changes the air in the room. Mm-hmm. The same dominant personalities aren't there. And that was their bet in Minnesota. And it's been a good one.
Ray and Dregs, Season 3, Episode 11, presented by Infinity, continues. All right, there he is, Kris Abbott, our good friend from Coolbet.co, joining us here on the Ray and Dregs podcast. Not going to lie, I'm looking at the two of you guys, and then I can see the image of myself coming back in the computer screen. We're looking a little sketchy. Actually, for the first time, perhaps in a long time, Kris, you look the best of the three of us. So you've been treating yourself well. You had a big weekend on all fronts. So I'm surprised that you look this spry as we record this early Monday afternoon.
I think I've been home for 6 consecutive days now, and I might have even gotten 8 hours of sleep one of those nights. So yeah, I'm starting to feel okay. Not like I know the traveling Ray's been doing, and every time I turn around, you're doing a game too, Dregs. So it's busy times, but busy's usually good, right?
Yeah, I thought my evaluation is how soft you are that you weren't in Winnipeg outdoor at the football game on Sunday. Like, what's wrong with you? What's happened to you?
Oh, I don't know, man. I've been too much traveling, but I wish I had been there. Instead, I was at the Toronto Rock season opener, playing out in Hamilton now, which was unbelievable. So that was a whole lot of fun. Can't be everywhere.
No, but it was a cool day in Winnipeg, right? Literally, it was cold. It was minus whatever it was. But from a sports perspective, two real good teams. The Winnipeg Jets topped the Toronto Maple Leafs in a game that we're going to talk a lot about on the podcast and have already. But perhaps even more importantly, because that's a regular season game, you had what went on in the Canadian Football League, right? With Saskatchewan and Manitoba. I had my onesie on, my Saskatchewan Roughriders onesie on.
It's a terrible thought.
It's a tough vision, but I don't know. Credit to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but when you look at what went down in Winnipeg, did it at least help you guys cover the spread at some point?
Well, I tell you, we're quite popular in Winnipeg, and it's due in large part to the guy who was there by proxy for us, Andrew Patterson, the Hustler. So, he is Mr. Winnipeg Sports. He went to both games. But it's funny, with when you talk about spreads and betting, when we put up the spread for the game, it was Bombers -7. I think it closed at 8.5. And, we had Davis Sanchez chime in and say, oh, here comes all the betting. And he was right. And I was like, yep, I know exactly how this is going to end up. So I actually bet on Saskatchewan plus 8.5 because, man, you see it every time when everybody's all over a number. Somehow, even though it's not supposed to end that way, it does. And sure enough, bunch of turnovers. The Riders covered, but everyone in Winnipeg went home happy. They were a slight favorite against the Leafs. They got out to the big lead there. I bet the under. That was over real early, so I didn't have to worry about that at all. But yeah, big day for Winnipeg sports fans. They beat their two biggest rivals within hours, so they had to be happy.
Now, for football, I'm interested. So the Grey Cup is Hamilton and Winnipeg. How much does weather play into the line? But early in the week, are people trying to jump the line before the weather becomes a factor?
Well, there's two approaches, right? If you think getting Winnipeg, I think they open at about 3.5 point favorite. The game is in Hamilton. Hamilton's playing at home, which is really cool. It's hard to say. You'll get some people that think, oh, this is a great number. I should get it now. But yeah, if it's a terrible game and it's going to be low scoring, then maybe you want to be on the side of the home underdog who's more than a field goal. So there's probably two schools of thought there, Ray, and I would lean to think that the middle of December in Hamilton's probably not going to be all that hospitable.
Now, will Coolbet have a whole list of prop bets that we can play around with?
Absolutely.
It's really it's so fun.
Passing yards, touchdown scores, all that good stuff. And then, Yeah, maybe we'll get into like the anthem over and unders, or how many times. Maybe we should do like how many times Rod Smith says a certain word or something like that. But those are real hard ones to do. If you guys got a phrase that Rod goes to a lot, let me know. We'll try and put it up. But yeah, and we're also sending a couple of cool bettors to the game. So that was a little contest we ran the last month. So yeah, it's shaping up to be a large day.
Yeah, no, big week. Obviously, we're focused at TSN on the Grey Cup, so looking forward to that. And then right around the corner is the World Junior Hockey Championship, right? So I'm assuming that Coolbet.co is starting to establish those odds at this point.
Yeah, right now, just some outright odds up. Canada is the favorite at plus 190. This year I'm interested to see how the tournament plays out. We usually take a lot of interest from Canada, a lot of interest from Finland. This is the first year I haven't been working in junior hockey, so I'm a little bit blind coming in. So I'm going to lean on the experts at TSN to let me know what's going on there, maybe before I place the bets. And then as we get closer to the tournament and the rosters are named, you'll be able to bet on most points, most goals, MVP, all that kind of stuff, goal total, over under for Canadian players and all that. But it's a real exciting time. I was a little surprised at how much betting interest the tournament took over the last couple of years, but it's like any sport now. If there's odds and people are watching, they're going to want to make it a little more interesting.
I would think just my only comment on that is that the unpredictability of a junior tournament would create some wild swings for the bettors, because it's all over the map.
It does, especially when you have kind of like the mismatch games in the World Juniors, and you see a spread in hockey, which is generally in the NHL 98% of the time it's at 1.5 goals. You'll see 2.5, 3.5, 5.5 goal spreads in some of these games. So that can also add an unpredictable element. But yeah, I agree. When it gets down to the medal round, and there's live betting available, you see a team get down no matter which side. It's never a bad idea to jump on the other team to come back, because that tournament is a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's such a fun tournament and such a fun time of year too, right? As we mentioned, we've got the Grey Cup coming up this week, and then looking very much forward to the World Junior Hockey Championship. Chris Abbott, thanks as always.
Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, bowl games, NFL playoffs, it never stops.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that more as it gets closer.
Ask Ray and Dregs anything. We invite you to fire off your questions to us. You can do it on Twitter or on Instagram at Ray and Dregs, or on the website, rayanddregs.com. Ask Ray and Dregs anything is presented by our friends at Tommy Gunn's Original Barbershop. Ray, you loved a little bit of heat time. You could use a little heat time today, huh?
Well,
maybe you have to.
I could use a lot today. Heat time is needed today. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is the full-on Tommy Gunn's experience, and you're going to love it too. Tommy Gunn's, the official barbershop for the 2022 World Junior Hockey Championship. Ray, we've got some good ones. Well, they're always good, but
they're always good. They're always interesting,
provoking. Right? Well,
okay.
Look, this isn't the first time that you've been asked this, okay?
Sure.
And I know you've talked about it because you and I have talked about it. It's about Ray Ferraro's future. So, Instagram, Josh wants to know, Ray, have you ever considered getting into coaching or management at the NHL level?
I always thought I would coach when I retired, and then it just didn't happen. And then I started broadcasting, and pretty soon I wasn't in that realm anymore, and I became a broadcaster. Management, I've always been interested in. I'd never been approached, asked. I think my opinions are probably, or my views of the game are probably pretty well known. If somebody wanted to talk to me about it, it's my job to offer those. But I've never even interviewed. So, some guys think they're a candidate all the time for every job.
You wouldn't want that either.
No, right? But I would like to know that, hey, I think I could do it. I really do. Yeah. But I love what I'm doing. Yeah. And so I'm not thinking that's in the cards.
No, but and look, I don't think I'm telling tales at a school here. You've got so many relationships, though, right? With coaches, general managers, all levels of organizations, not just in the National Hockey
Well,
League,
as you
but
get older,
literally.
you start to know people, right?
Yeah, but they trust your opinion. They value your opinion. And you take a pile of calls, right? Not just from buddies, or when you can do it, face-to-face conversations where a coach or a manager will say to you, hey, I know you did the game 3 nights ago. What do you think of this guy? I mean, those conversations for you would happen regularly.
Correct. And they're fun to have, but you're not in the fire, right? It's just a conversation. It's your opinion. I do miss the wins and the losses. I think I would really like to. Well, everybody says I'd like to be part of a winner. Well, not everybody gets to. Lots of guys are in management. They're not part of a winner. And those guys look tortured. So I enjoy what I do. I really do.
All right. Dom Ducharme of the Montreal Canadiens has established that Carey Price is not going to be playing before Christmas. And that's far from shocking, right? I mean, he needs to get his game back and all of that, the knee healthy, all of those things. Brooke Dickinson, my apologies, Brooke, on Instagram is asking, what do we think the odds are that Carey Price is starting for Montreal next season? Which would imply, what do we think the odds are that Carey Price is playing for the Montreal Canadiens next season?
Well, I think good, because his contract is $10 million a year.
Yeah.
And I believe after this year, Dregs, he's got 3 years left on it. I believe it's 3.
3 or 4. I'd have to check, but you're right.
Yeah. Like how are you moving that contract? Like it's really, if that's what the decision was going to be, holy man, how are you going to do it? Like, who's going to be able to take that kind of contract on? And so that means to me that yes, he's going to be, he'll be in Montreal.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Anything is doable. If anything, I think there's a conversation in the off season, and then it becomes more of an opportunity, right? Because you can involve other teams and you can move out money and things like that. But
sure,
it seems like a long shot.
It does seem. It seems like it would be hard.
Yeah. All right. Here's a lighthearted one, but this one is near and dear to my heart. Best outdoor rink memories from Nick Latimer on Instagram. You must have a few growing up in trail.
Yeah, I do. But I'm just going to say, like, for about 3 years, my dad built a rink in our backyard. And, at the time we felt it was really big. And then you look at the backyard and you're like, oh my gosh, that was pretty small. But to us, well, to me, basically, it was the best. I would go out after school and just no boards, not like some of the ones you get sent to you, Dregs, are just beautiful. And I'm not talking about the ones that are prefabbed. I'm talking about the ones that people build themselves. So I remember my dad hooking up a hose to the water tank in the house so he could flood with warm water, because it would be a smoother fill. The snowbanks were the boards. In the spring, there'd be 20 pucks on the lawn because I'd missed the net, and they'd hit the snowbank. You couldn't find them. I remember shoveling those snows after dinner, going out. They'd leave the kitchen lights on or the porch lights on, and that would be my only light till it got too dark to play. And I remember still, I guess it's all about family too. But I remember my mom and dad, they'd be in the kitchen window and just looking out, and I'd be skating around. And, I'd wave to them. I'm just a little guy, right? And that's my favorite stuff.
Nah, that's terrific. And my memories are very, very similar. I actually enjoyed the maintenance and the building and all of it. It was therapeutic, right? Because you just put on headphones or whatever, and you can see there's instant gratification when you flood. There's nothing prettier than a fresh, just a pristine glass. Beautiful out there. But I remember my son Mason saying to me one time, I said, why do you like it so much? Why do you love it out there so much? You're by yourself a lot of the time. And he said, because there's nobody telling me what to do. Like if I want to, muck around on my backhand or try trick shots or do whatever I want to do. There's no structure that there is in a 90-minute practice. And that always stuck with me. And that's not a criticism of coaching. That's just his experience in it, right? But I had
free time, Drake. Free time, play time is critical in anything.
Yeah. You want my worst backyard rink story?
Oh, you got one, do you?
It was a pond, yeah. So I was a little fella, and I was going out to play with I got called up to the big leagues. My older brother had this pond hockey game set up, and they needed reinforcements. So here I come. I'm like probably 8-10 years old, maybe. And again, it was like a slough in Saskatchewan. It had been shoveled off. It's just perfect. I go running. I got my skates over my shoulder, tied up. I trip on, I don't know, a rock or something as I'm getting close to the pond. I fall and I land on the blade of my skate right across my wrist. And I look down and the blood is just bloop, bloop, bloop. Oh. And my brother comes steamrolling. He goes, "What did you do?" No, it was just a nick. It was like a quarter of an inch, but I just cut a vein or something, not the major, but so anyway, needless to say, I got rushed home and taken to the doctor and didn't get to play. I was so sour. So anyway,
and never.
Not sure that was the memory that Nicholas was looking for. But you get a little everything here on the Ray and Dregs podcast, don't you? All right, check out Ray and Dregs' social channels for Rapid Fire presented by netcoins.ca. That is crypto made easy. A little later this week, we're going to have Marcus Foligno taking part in Rapid Fire. The players are always such good sports, so looking forward to getting through that. You are in Toronto as we record the podcast. I know we've got big Leafs game, so lots of news to chew on Tuesday. Meanwhile, what's the rest of the week look like for you?
I'm actually, so the Leaf game's on Tuesday, Thursday, and then I'm in Washington on Friday for Penguins Capitals. And so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing Ovi and Crosby again. I mean, Crosby started to heat up. I mean, Jake Gensel's got a 12-game point streak, but man, Ovi is something else this year, isn't he? And I'm looking forward to watching that.
It's so fun. We're talking on the quiz about scoring championship and who's going to win. Draisaitl, the hands-on favorite, all of that. And of course, based on how Leon continues to fill the net, you can make that case. But the fact that Ovi is even in that conversation, it's far from surprising. But the fact that he is just super impressive.
It's just amazing. Like he's off to, I think he's still off to his best 24-game start.
Yeah.
He is the Russian machine.
There's lots to look forward to. We're just kind of hitting stride here in the regular season. I look at that Capitals team, and if they need to get healthy, and if they can stay healthy, and you can say that about any club, certainly the top contenders. Who knows with that group?
Well, think of this, Drake. Sorry, just before you let you go on that, Nick Backstrom's gonna start to play pretty soon. That's a nice little add to your lineup.
Well, you mentioned all the guys that aren't playing for the Tampa Bay Lightning earlier in the pod. It's ridiculous. I mean, that would decimate. I mean, we haven't talked about the Islanders in a while, but look at how COVID and injury and all of that has taken a toll on the Islanders this year. And somehow Tampa Bay, with their depth, just continued to find a way. All right, sir. Well, huge shout out to our partners who make the podcast possible. That's our title sponsor, Infinity. Thank you. And a reminder, visit infinity.ca and you can book your contactless test drive. Coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website, by our good friends at Canadian Club who are asking, are you over beer? By Endy.ca, remember, use code RD75 to save $75 on a mattress. By Tommy Gunn's Original Barbershop, this is He Time. Save time and check in with their new fancy app. And by Boston Pizza. You get a free $10 promo card when you buy a $50 Boston Pizza gift card. And a special thank you to you, of course, for listening, for rating, for sharing, for following the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and for following us on our YouTube channel as well. Enjoy your week, be safe, and as we do, you look forward to episode 11 of the Ray and Dregs podcast coming your way soon.